Coming from someone who's coping about missing these massive dips yesterday, what's your plan of entry on leverage, if any? I'm not rushing into anything. We just had a huge liquidation event. There's a good chance some of this bounce is 1, Trump related, 2, it's leverage positions unwinding. People who were short from the range high are unwinding, and that allows price to bounce. So I'm not completely convinced that that was the bottom yet. I still think we got to wait and see. It's Monday. We just had a bunch of negative news basically come in over the weekend, and this is the first reaction we've seen. So I'm not fully convinced that this is it. If we get really bullish, like there's a fair value gap that's forming here, potentially. So we get a big fair value gap here, we flip the mid-range, and then we get some sort of retest, then sure, maybe I look for some sort of longs towards the range high. But I'm treating this as a range. This very easily could do this. So I'm not gonna rush into longing it. I think if you missed longing here or even here earlier, you don't need to rush into this thing. Just wait for a clear setup. Just because it dumped and now it's V-bottoming, you do not need to chase an entry. Do the same as you always would. It's just a chart. Forget the narrative, forget the noise. How would you enter a chart that looks like this that's in a range? Where's your next entry? For me, entry is on some sort of strong reclaim of the mid-range, or it's on a pullback. We've got some support here now on the H1. So if this is bullish and it retests here, you could probably take a long on something like this. I don't know, right? Like, don't overthink it just because you miss the entry. That's the thing about knife catching, is you don't know when the bottom's gonna be. It's very scary. You guys had these levels for me for ages on Bitcoin and Solana specifically. So if you ape those, GG. But you're buying this just blind. There's no other reason to buy this other than just blindly hoping that the support level is going to work. And where's your inval? If you're buying 175 on Sol because you're like, well, this is the range low, where's your stop? It's got to go below there at least. So until this thing gets up to 220, it's not even at 2R yet. I'm not saying this isn't a crazy bounce, but when you're knife catching, you still got to have an invalidation, because this very well could have done what ETH did and pulled back even more, and then you're fucked. Like, if you would have bought ETH at the top of demand here, the same as Solana, and be like, well, it's at the top of monthly demand, I'm gonna buy it, it dropped another 25%. So that knife catching, those dips, I know you see a lot of people saying they snipe the dip and stuff. It's very risky business. Most people who catch knives end up with bloody hands.